And welcome back to the channel, everybody. I can hear you all right now. I can hear you guys yelling at me. I just hear you yelling. No speed? Wrong. Like, I can hear all of you just collectively out there yelling at me about this right now already. But, guys, just hear me out. Hear me out. At the end of the video today, you are going to believe, you're going to be on board with this, guys. You're going to believe me when I say that speed is not that important in modding, guys. Not anymore, at least. Not like it used to be. For any of you guys that are new to Swugga, early game, or maybe you took a long break from the game, like a 3-year break maybe, and you're just now coming back to the game, you know who you are. Well, we have a video for you today, guys, that's gonna help you know how to do modding and get caught up in the modding, guys. With that being said, everybody, let's get into it, shall we? Alright, so first and foremost, like I said, guys, we're going to be checking out my modding manifesto. I do modding a little bit differently than most people do. Before we can really get into what my manifesto is, we have to kind of talk about why it has evolved from what it used to be. So back in the early days of Swugga, first and foremost, the way that we modded, or the way that we farmed mods, I should say, was vastly different. So for those of you that don't know, the way this used to work is basically that we would get a mod, we would roll the first 2 levels of that mod 2 times, and then we would take it up to the next level. So you were actually able to focus in on certain stats. So for instance, if you had a blue mod that had % offense and speed, or even, for instance, flat offense back at that time, and speed, that was a mod you really wanted to focus on. You'd re-roll that, might get 15 speed, for instance, off the bat on that. That's a mod you're keeping, that's a mod you're taking up as far as you can. But they changed the way mods work, and now it no longer rolls those stats that have been shown to you. Instead, it rolls all of the stats out first, and then goes back and increases the stats themselves. That changed things drastically for us. We can't really hard focus in on a stat anymore. The other big thing that has changed, guys, and I think this is really the biggest part of it really here, is relics. So they brought relics to the game, and that completely changed the way that we approach modding. Stats became vastly more different in terms of importance. For instance, it went from flat stats being better to percentage stats being better. Also, here's the other key thing. There was a big shift in the way that crystals are given out in the game. It used to be squad arena was the big thing. So you were always just taking on the current meta, the biggest, best current team, which meant there was a lot of mirror matches. You want to win a mirror match? You need to go first. Now that Squad Arena is not the main way to pay anything out, guys, now the big thing is GAC. And in GAC, it's pretty rare that we do mirror matches. There are still occasions, don't get me wrong, where there will be mirror matches that happen, and speed can still be important in those situations. But what used to be, I would say, like 95% of your matches all were absolutely dependent upon speed. Now it's like only maybe 5 to 10% of the matches are dependent on speed because they're not mirror matches. It's more about the actual kit and the general overall stats of those characters. So because of those drastic changes in the game, we're going to have a little look here today, guys, like I said, at why my modding farming is very different than what a lot of people used to or still do, which I would argue is not the right way to do this. So first and foremost, the number we have 5 kind of key statements here to the modding manifesto that I have here, guys. Statement number 1, synergy is significant. So with the number of characters that we have in the game, the number of mods that we have in the game, it's really more about having good synergy in your mods with the characters and their kits. Obviously, the character it goes on doesn't really matter that much. You kind of find the character that fits the mod as you make the mod. But the synergy of the stats are so important here, guys. We're going to take a look at kind of a couple examples of what I mean with this. So I have 4 different characters here in the game that I have where we have varying degrees of synergy within these certain mods. So we're going to take a look at Darth Sidious first. So Darth Sidious is an example here where the mod I have on him does not look good. If you were to look at this when it first dropped, you would think this is a terrible mod. You still might think it's a terrible mod. We're going to be looking at the cross. Now, obviously, I gotta preface this that the location of these mods matters, guys. which we will talk about. That is one of our key points in our manifesto later on the road here. The location in this matters. Would I have a square or a diamond mod with only 5 speed on it? It'd be questionable. But because this is a cross, 5 speed for me is still a keeper. Believe it or not, guys. There are so many people out there, though, that would see this on initial roll and they'd throw this mod away. Only getting 5 speed. You can see I've taken it up a good bit here, too. But the big thing is here, you have a potency primary and you have a potency as your main stat here, or qualifier, so to speak, for this mod. Because of that, this immediately, especially because of how rare it is to get a potency primary, this immediately becomes an important mod, guys. You will find a character somewhere in the game where this mod is useful for you. And you can see, as I said here, Sidious is a prime example of this. Sidious doesn't necessarily have to be crazy fast. He has a lot of built-in speed, which is good. But with the way that I use him primarily in a Treya team, or when we had the Sidcron, he didn't need to be fast. He just counterattacked constantly and gained turn meter and all sorts of good stuff. So speed was not really important for him in that situation. Because of that, this mod becomes very, very good. I just wanted him to be thick, and I wanted him to crit as much as possible. It works beautifully, but this is an example of where that synergy from the potency primary and the actual potency on the cross itself, the main part of the mod here, is vitally, vitally, vitally important, guys. We can move on to the next one, which is Mara Jade. Mara Jade is a bit of an example of where this is actually a very, very good mod that can be used in a lot of places, even though it doesn't meet one of my criteria that we'll talk about later. So this is a plus mod again. Again, keep in mind, it is a plus mod, a cross mod, if you will. It is very rare to find good ones here, so some of these are not going to be as god mod-like as you might expect. But again, it is a potency mod with a potency primary. Basically, as soon as you see a potency mod with potency primary or tenacity mod with tenacity primary, keep it. Just keep it. Like, they are so rare in the game to find, guys. You want to keep those mods. Even if you don't have a place immediately to use that on a character, you will find a place eventually for that mod to go. You can see with this one, the speed for this did roll up a lot better, which is good for Mara Jade. Mara Jade does need to be fast. But I do have some flat stats on here, which I don't like. We'll talk more about the flat stats in a little bit here. But again, overall, though, again, this is still going to be a very useful mod for you throughout the game. Kind of as a counter example here, with we talked about potency and tenacity primaries. Offense primaries are another really important stat to try to line up in terms of a synergy standpoint. So we have on our triangle here, we have an offense primary. You want that to go with an offense mod. Same idea with Malicos here. For his arrow, we have an offense primary going with an offense mod. And again, both of those that you saw with Luke and Malicos, their speeds aren't bad. Don't get me wrong; they're not terrible mods. But I don't have insane speed on them. I don't have like 25 speed on those mods, and they're still great mods. They're very, very, very usable, guys. All right. With that being said, so that is again point number 1. You want synergy, guys. You really need a lot of synergy in your modding across the board. Point number 2, location matters. We just kind of alluded to this. Those plus mods, those triangle mods, guys, are so difficult to get. They're so difficult to get. If I looked at my breakdown, it's something like I have like 3 or 4 times the number of square and diamond mods that I do the other ones. And that's with me having stopped focusing on them. I've just had so many of them, I just stopped farming them basically, unless they have really top-end stats that I'm looking for. So you really, really need to focus in, especially guys, on the location of this mod. And keep in mind, folks, that all things are not equal when it comes to this kind of a situation. We'll be doing a little example here with Jar Jar. Jar Jar is an example of where the mod is actually really good. This came out to be a pretty solid mod for me, even though there's not a lot of synergy here. So for instance, it's a speed mod, it's a potency primary, it's only 15 speed. That's not amazing for a speed mod. There's 2 flat rolls here, and in fact, one of them is flat defense, probably the worst roll you can have in the game. But because this is a cross, this is still a great mod. Like, it's crazy to think that. And you can see I've even tried to calibrate this some guys, and unfortunately I did not get good rolls on the calibrations. But because this is a cross mod, this still has a lot of high-end value for me. as a kind of counter example of that, this is great. This is triangle mod. This is where singular speed became amazing. All of my other stats on here are pretty terrible, but we got great speed. But this is one that I did not get that until I started doing some of the rerolls. This was actually only a 10 speed mod at first. It was 10 speed and a whole bunch of protection and defense. And I rerolled the defense and kept bringing this up to gold, and I ended up getting more of those speed rolls. We rerolled one of the defense stats over to speed, and suddenly this mod became great. Whereas it may not have been something you would consider to be great initially because there's not any synergy there, really. The potency didn't roll. Even though it does have potency, it didn't roll. The speed was bad on this. But again, it's a triangle mod. It's very, very important, guys, that we focus on those locations. Same idea here with Jolie Bindo. No synergy here, really, for the most part. He doesn't even have a health secondary, but it's, again, a tenacity primary. He does have some pretty good speed on here, but again, because this is a plus mod, it is very valuable. That's a really good mod, actually, in my opinion. And kind of last but not least here, Han Solo, we have an example here with the triangle mod. Only 8 speed on this roll, not good at all. He does have some percentages, though. He does have crit damage, which is a good primary. So again, this is kind of a situation where the synergy is not really there. There's no health on the secondaries. There's a total lack of synergy, but because of the location, and in this case, the secondary stats, which we'll talk more about in a second, this is actually still a very valuable mod. So again, keep in mind, guys, that the location really, really matters, particularly those triangles and those cross mods. All right, third one, primary importance. So primary importance refers to the primary stat that goes with that mod. We talked a little bit about this before. Ideally, you want your primaries to match up well with the synergy of the mod. You want potency with potency. You want tenacity with tenacity. Offense with offense, that kind of a thing. But sometimes there are primaries that we often neglect, and we don't really realize just how valuable they can be in certain circumstances. So for instance, primaries, guys, are pretty much always going to go this way. Speed for the arrows are important. Next to that, offense is probably the next most important primary, followed by health, protection, basically all of the stats. Defense being one of the last ones. Crit avoid is not terrible in certain circumstances, and then probably the worst one is accuracy. Tenacity, potency, obviously are kind of in the same realm, I would say, as like health, protection, somewhere in that realm. Those are rare, so it is kind of good to keep those if you can find them. But a couple examples of primary where these primaries are actually not very good on first look, but they can be used in a good location if rolled correctly. So we've got Daka's arrow here. This was a crit avoid arrow that came out, and in first look, this probably wouldn't be that great. But again, after some rolling, after some re-rolling, this turned into a very, very good mod for us. 35% crit avoid in the primary, which is great for Daka in particular. She's got a decent amount of health. She's got some tenacity. She's got lots of potency. And then we got some nice speed rolls as well. So again, first thought might be, oh, it's a crit avoid mod. Throw it out the window. Not very good. Not going to be very useful. Don't get rid of these guys just because of that primary. A lot of times, if you have good secondaries and you've got some synergy between those mods and the stats in particular, they are worth keeping and continuing to work on. We have also Bosk as another example here. The defense primary, typically thought of as being one of the worst primaries in the game, can have value at times. So not necessarily something that you immediately want to throw away. For instance, this mod had tenacity, protection, speed, and flat defense. 3 of those stats are very good for a character like Bosk, who wants to be a fast tank. So I took this up, brought it up. We got some speed rolls on it. We got protection rolls. You can see I took it up all the way to the gold tier. I haven't even re-rolled this one at all, guys. And it is immediately a great, great mod. I actually won't re-roll this because I'm very, very happy with what it is. Again, is that defense great? No. But with the right secondaries, with the right rolls on those secondaries, and also, again, location, location, location. This is a cross mod, guys. This is a very valuable mod, and this works great on my Bosk. Very, very good. So again, don't just throw mods away because they are defense or crit avoid or tenacity, or certainly not tenacity or potency. Those are definitely worth keeping. Accuracy, you might want to throw those away. Sorry, accuracy. Accuracy mod's pretty bad. Maybe keep a few just to be nice. All right, next up, number 4. Okay, Fine, I will admit, guys, that speed is sort of important. You still want speed. What I'm saying is that speed doesn't trump everything like it used to. Okay, the speed secondaries are important, though. General rule of thumb for me is if there is not speed, I do get rid of it. I do that. So there may have been a little bit of clickbait in this. Sorry, guys. But there are instances where you don't necessarily have to have speed. Especially with tanks, characters that might be very reactive, like a Padme, for instance, or a Jedi Knight Anakin, although most of the time you want speed on Jedi Knight Anakin. But you can get away with not having a crazy amount of speed. But, obviously, if you get a mod that has top-end speed rolls, you're keeping that mod. As an example, if you get this, I had to show this off, guys. I had to show it off. If you get a mod like this, you keep this mod. You don't get rid of it, okay? So I'm not saying that you just throw away 25 speed plus mods. You don't do that, all right? To be clear, the speed is still important. It is still probably, arguably, the #1 most important secondary stat in the game. But what I'm saying is that it's not as valuable as it used to be. Again, I'll use an example here with this mod, guys. So this, before I took this up to gold, actually, and did a reroll here, this actually was only a 15 speed mod. Or, I'm sorry, it was 18, my fault. 18 speed mod. And then did the rolls, got it up to the gold, did a recalibration. You can see it's 5 on there. I did do a recalibration. But this had rolled a lot of flat protection and flat defense, actually. So at first you might be like, it's not a very good mod, you know? It's just okay. But don't get rid of it just because it immediately doesn't roll 20 plus speed, guys. Sometimes those mods can turn into great mods. If it has good speed, if it has what I would argue to be 10 or above, it's probably worth keeping. I know most people say 15 or higher is the only thing worth keeping. I disagree with that. If you've got 10 plus on your speeds, those are usually worth keeping. In some cases, which we'll talk about in a second, it could have even less than 10 speed. A couple more examples of great speed. You can see, again, that's a synergy situation, guys. Lots of protection along with that speed, which is great for JML. My Phasma, this is an example of a terrible mod. This is a terrible mod. Absolutely terrible. There's no synergy here. It's in a very, very common location. It's got flat stats. It's got crit chance, which is not really that great of a percentage stat, but it rolled 27 speed. It's a keeper. I mean, period, end of discussion. Sometimes speed still matters, guys. Don't ask me why I have that on my Phasma. I just do. I'm just waiting for the right person to put it on that needs something better. And kind of a last example of this, sometimes you will have mods where you actually, it's not worth rolling them any higher. This is a kind of prime example here. We have an offense mod. We have an offense primary. The synergy is great on this. We have a lot of speed. We have the speed maxed out, basically, for what it can do. And then our other secondaries just really aren't very good. This is a mod I would actually not take up to gold because there's not really a lot of value. You're not getting a lot of ROI. Shout out to Bones. He loves that term. If you were to take this up to gold. So really try to recognize the maximized value of a mod, guys. Just be careful to not overinvest in a mod that does not need it. Like this is a prime example. This is pretty much maxed out. You're not going to get any more value out of this. Again, it's a great mod. Still a very good mod, but it has limited ROI at this point. All right, moving on to our final point, that is percent secondaries rule. I actually would argue that your percent secondaries are almost more important than your speed. Speed is probably singularly more important than any other percent secondary, but as a whole, the percent secondaries are more important than speed, in my opinion. So remember what I said earlier, guys. The mirror matches are not really a thing very much anymore. Your speed being better than their speed is not as essential as it once was. It is more about having good quality stats for your characters that accentuate the kits that need to be accentuated. That is the most important thing. Whenever we look in my GACs, for instance, and we're looking at mod comparisons, even now where I am currently, I'm frequently getting outsped. A lot of people have more speed mods than I do, but I have way more 6-dot mods than them. I have way more other secondary stats like offense percentage, protection, health, things like that. And I'm able to beat them a lot of times because I just have better quality roster as a whole than they do, even though they might be faster. Again, it doesn't matter because we're not mirror matching. It just doesn't happen like it used to. Again, it can, but not like it once was at one time. As an example here, guys, of what I'm talking about with the secondary percentages, and this is kind of my rule of thumb with this, guys. My rule of thumb is, generally speaking, if there is one flat stat in the secondaries, it's worth keeping, as long as all of the other three are either speed or percentages. If you have speed plus 3 percentage stats, that's a freaking keeper, guys. You keep that mod, you work that mod all the way up to the gold tier. Don't get me wrong, you can still get some bad rolls, and it'll become more of a situational mod as opposed to a god mod, but there's still a lot of innate value in that. An example I'll use here. So you can see with this mod, we have one flat stat with health. Again, speed I know is a flat stat, guys, but speed's completely different. Then we had offense percentage, potency. So again, that's 2 percentage stats plus speed plus 1 flat stat. You can see we did do a reroll on this. One of those stats was a flat health stat, and that was not great. But you take this all the way up to gold, suddenly what once was, you know, a 10 speed mod with 3 rolls of offense and then a roll of health flat looked just mediocre at best. This suddenly has now turned into an absolute god tier mod because you again have good stats that you're rolling up when you're going from 6E to 6A. That's where most people get confused, guys. They kind of live in the old model where the speed rolls, that was it. You couldn't really take the mods up beyond that. We can take them up. We can get more rolls on these mods than what we used to be able to. The other thing that I do, I don't think everybody does this. This is just something that I do. I will not re-roll my mods until I have them at gold. I just try to maximize their value first before I start trying to really invest deeply into them, into the re-rolls. But again, you can see with this particular mod, that fits my criteria. It is great. Gas is another example where we want the percentages. Yeah, this is a great one. It has a protection primary, which is exactly what we want for General Skywalker. Defense on him is good, so again, there's some synergy there. It's a rare mod slot. It has percentage across the board, tenacity, health, offense, and then it obviously has speed as well. What's great about this mod, guys, is that it's only a green mod. I can keep taking this up to gold. If I get 2 more, in this instance, probably I would prefer offense rolls. My goodness, this mod becomes a monster mod. Speed would be okay here, but again, this is just an example of where speed isn't necessarily king like it used to be, guys. This mod is amazing for my gas team, and if I can take this up to gold, it's just not a priority because it's actually pretty good where it is right now. But if I could take that up to gold, holy moly! Again, just another amazing mod that you look at the stats across the board, across the roster. And this doesn't showcase as being a great mod because it's only 11 speed. But it's actually a great mod because of the secondary stats that are on this, the synergy of the kit as a whole from the mods and how it matches up with General Skywalker. So again, do not allow speed just to be what you guys are looking for. Don't rule out mods just because it doesn't have top-end speed when you first get it. Again, you can see the quality of those speed rolls are good, a 5 and a 6, so that's still good quality. But again, a lot of people would tell you that doesn't have 15 speed. Throw it away. They're wrong. Like, period, end of story. They are wrong. This is a great mod, guys. So I hope that helps you guys a little bit to understand that modding is just, it's so different than what it used to be. It is so different, and there are so many videos out there and so many people that just preach speed, 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 speed. And that is not the #1 most important thing anymore. It still has high value. Don't get me wrong. I'm not completely oblivious to the real world of Swugger here, guys. But you can see it is number 4 on my list. It's actually not that high of a value for me. I would rather have solid primaries, solid location mods like those pluses and those triangles, and then mods that have great synergy across the board, because I'm going to find a character that will use that mod, whether they need speed or not. There are so many characters in the game right now, especially with the way that kits are designed now from CG. The kits are designed to not just be about speed anymore. So it's really not as valuable as it once was. I'd love to hear your guys' thought, because obviously this is a bit of a controversial video and a bit of a controversial manifesto here. Very different than what it used to be is kind of the general primary thought process with this. So let me know in the comments down below, guys. Do you agree with this, first and foremost? And if you do, let me know what you think is the most important point that I made here today. And if you don't, let me know what you think is wrong about it and why we should change it. Like I said, for me personally, I'm all about the stats being percentages. That's the primary importance. I want speed. I do want the speed to be there. And I want the good quality synergy in my mods. That's far and away the most important thing with those secondary stats that are percentages and speed, guys. Really important. If you guys liked today's video, I would appreciate it very much so if you guys liked the video. More importantly, if you guys want to check out more of the content that we've got coming out here for Swugga, make sure you guys subscribe and turn those notifications on. And last but not least, guys, if you want to check out, if you want to go down that rabbit hole of some more Swugga stuff, make sure you guys check out the next video.